Hi, my name is Rachel and you're watching the Rachelistic channel. So if you didn't already know, today's video is all about echolalia. So this is a topic that I find very interesting because it's only recently that I learned that I actually do echolalia quite a bit. So I wanted to learn more about it and do a video for you guys so that you can learn more about it too. So let's learn about echolalia. So what is echolalia? So the definition of echolalia is just it's repeating others' words and or sentences or phrases, just repeating things that other people have said. So echolalia, it can look in like various different ways. So first of all, echolalia can be things repeated from people that you know. So like friends, family, teachers, coworkers, I don't know, someone that you know. Or it could be from something that you've heard on TV or from a movie or even in a song. So yeah, really just anything that you've heard anywhere from anyone can become echolalia. And so second, I don't even know what I said before, but echolalia can be repeated once or it can be repeated multiple times. So I think like the stereotypical image of echolalia, or like at least what I thought echolalia always was like repeating something over and over and over again, but it's not always repeating something like multiple times like that. It can be just repeating something once, and that is still counts as echolalia. Third, so echolalia can be conscious, so something that you're consciously doing, that you are voluntarily doing, something that you are intentionally doing, but it can also be automatic and like happen involuntarily or unintentionally. So it can be like an automatic thing that you do or something that happens without you necessarily wanting it to happen, but it can also be something that you consciously are doing and you want to do. So, yeah. And then finally, echolalia can be used as a way to communicate things to people, or it can be used as a way or it can just be like something that you do not as a way to communicate to people. That's kind of echolalia and kind of how it looks. So there are 3 different types of echolalia that I learned about through my research. The first one is immediate echolalia, and so that is when, it is what it sounds like. It happens immediately. So you repeat something like right after you've heard it. So for example, someone asking like, do you want to go to the mall? And you immediately, right after they say like, you want to go to the mall, like that is immediate. That's an example of immediate echolalia. So the second type is delayed echolalia, and that is when you repeat something that you've heard, but at a later time. So for example, say you like hear a song on the radio and then hours later or maybe days later, you're repeating maybe a line from the song that you heard. And so the third type of echolalia is mitigated echolalia or mitigated echolalia. I don't really know how you're supposed to say that word. Mitigated or mitigated, I don't know. But that is the third type of echolalia. So that is when you make a change in the wording or in the intonation made by the original speaker. So the example that I came up with, which I don't know if it's a very good example, but this is the example I came up with. So say like a parent, every time it's like dinner and there's like veggies on the plate, the parent is like, eat your veggies. And so maybe on a particular night they're having pasta and there's no veggies on the plate. So the kid is like, eat your pasta. Because I don't know, it's like using the same structure and like some of the same words that the parent would use, but instead of saying eat your veggies, they're saying eat your pasta. So that's the example I came up with. Yeah. So along with those 3 types of echolalia, there are also just other types of like repetitive speech, or like echo phenomenon is what it's called. So one of the other types is palilalia. And so that is like repeating your own words. So from what I like learned about palilalia, so it's most often seen like with increasing rapidity and decreasing volume. So like you're saying something that you said multiple times, but quieter and faster. That's how it's most often seen. So an example would be like you say you want ice cream and then you repeat like ice cream a couple of times. So it's like, I want ice cream, ice cream, kind of. But that's how it's most often seen. But I think it also, like palilalia, like the term also applies to just like repeating your own words like regularly. I don't know, not regularly, but like repeating your own words like echolalia. Another echo phenomenon is echologia. And that is basically, it's literally echolalia, but in your head. So instead of repeating things that you've heard out loud, you're repeating it in your head. So yeah, that's echologia. And so, like I said, there are lots of other types of echo phenomenon out there. Like you can like literally just like Google echo phenomenon and you'll find like a list, you can find a list of like all the different terms for like these things, like repeating things. So I'm just focusing on like repeating words specifically, but there are other ones where it's like you like mimic facial expressions or body movements. So those are some of the ones that I remember seeing. But yeah, you can like Google and find like a whole list of echo phenomenon. So it's pretty interesting. If you want to learn more, you can just search up that term and read about it. So why do people use echolalia? What is the reasons behind echolalia? So before I get into the reasons why people might use echolalia, I want to say that echolalia doesn't always have a reason. Sometimes, like when it happens, like automatically and like involuntarily, like without your control, there's obviously not a reason for that. It just kind of happens. So sometimes echolalia happens without a reason, but a lot of the times it does have a reason behind it. And so yeah, I'm going to talk about some of those reasons. So there's like two main like broad reasons. So one is like for non-communicative purposes, and the other is for communicative purposes. So I'm going to focus on the non-communicative purposes first. So the first one is for stimming. So if you don't know what stimming is, that is stealth. Stimming is self-stimulatory behavior, and that is like when you do certain behavior to stimulate yourself. So it can be used either for like enjoyment, or to like regulate like your behavior, regulate your emotions or something like that. So echolalia can be used for stimming. I think that it's used quite a lot for stimming, especially amongst autistic people. And yeah, so it can look like repeating something that you enjoy hearing or enjoy saying, just repeating something that you like to hear, or it can look like repeating something to help with regulating your emotions or like your behavior and stuff like that. The second non-communicative reason for stimming, or not for stimming, for echolalia is related to stimming. Personally, I feel like this should be underneath the category of stimming because I feel like it's the same thing, but it had its own category when I was doing the research, so I left it as its own. But the second reason is self-talk. So that is just repeating things to yourself to help you get through a difficult moment. So like if you're like feeling overwhelmed or like super stressed, like you would like repeat something over and over and over to yourself to help calm yourself down, which I feel is just stimming, but whatever. So the third reason is for rehearsal. So this is when you would go over something in your head, probably, or quietly to yourself before actually like saying it out loud or saying it to whoever you're speaking to. Yeah, this is something that I realized that I do a lot if I have something that I want to say. Like, it doesn't even have to be like serious, just like, I don't know, something interesting that I thought of and I want to say. I'll like repeat it like a few times in my head before I actually say it out loud. Yeah, I didn't realize that that was like a part of echolalia, but it is, so that's pretty interesting. The fourth non-communicative reason for echolalia is association. So, like situation association, which I think is fun to say. So that's when you like see or hear or think of something that reminds you of something else, and then you use or do echolalia that is like related to that. So, for example, say you're out somewhere and then you hear people talking about finding Nemo or finding Dory, and then you automatically are thinking of like Dory's song, like Just Keep Swimming. And she's like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Yeah, that's echolalia because you're like repeating something that you've heard, but the reason is like like situation association. So you associate like Finding Nemo with the Just Keep Swimming song, right? But it doesn't always have to be like that super related. Like it could be like someone just says like one word and you're thinking of something else, or you're like repeating something from like a show that you've heard before. I feel like this happens to me a lot at church because a lot of like church songs and stuff have like specific phrases that people love to use in their sermons and stuff. And so anytime I'm just sitting there and they say something and I'm thinking of a song now because of what they said, I'm literally like singing a song in my head and I'm not listening anymore. So yeah. But yeah, this happens a lot, and also happens a lot because of TikTok nowadays, but that's besides the point. Those are the non-communicative reasons for echolalia. So now let's move on to the communicative reasons. So the first communicative reason is to request something, so to ask for something. So you would use echolalia to ask for something. So typically this would be more of like delayed echolalia. I mean, I feel like most of these are delayed echolalia, but you would repeat something that you've heard someone else say as a way to ask for something. So I have two examples for this. So one example is like, say you're hungry, you want to eat lunch. Instead of like saying that, you say, do you want lunch? Because that's what you hear other people say, or that's what people have said to you when it's lunchtime. So you're like, do you want lunch? Instead of saying, I want lunch, you're like, do you want lunch? Anyways, yeah, my second example is like, say a kid wants to play hide and seek. So they say, ready or not, here I come, as a way to say that they want to play hide and seek instead of just saying, I want to play hide and seek, because that's how they communicate. So, yeah. The second communicative reason is to answer something. So, to say yes to something or to refuse something or say no to something. So, I have two examples for this one as well. So, my first example, say someone is asking you if you want a cookie, and instead of saying yes, you say cookie. So like you're repeating kind of like what they said as a way to say yes. And then the second example is like, say a parent wants their child to wear a hat outside, but the child says, don't you dare, as a way to say, no, I don't want to wear a hat right now, because they've heard their parents say, don't you dare, when, I don't know, when the kid is trying to do something that the parent doesn't want to do. So now they associate that phrase with, if I don't want you to do something, then I'm going to say, don't you dare. So, yeah, that is using echolalia as a way to answer to something. And then the third reason is turn taking. So that is like to fill an alternating verbal exchange. So I think basically it's like using echolalia to like continue a conversation, or to like kind of have a conversation. There wasn't so much research on this. There wasn't like a lot of information, like specific information on this reason when I was doing the research. So I was kind of confused at first, but I think I understand it better now. Like it's like using echolalia to continue a conversation. So like I feel like a good example for that would be like with when it comes to small talk. Like instead of like actually answering the questions, you just say things that you've heard other people say. So like, hi, how are you? I'm good. How are you? You know, like just saying the things that you've heard people say instead of actually answering the question. But to be honest, in small talk, I feel like everybody is low key using echolalia because everyone says the same thing anyways. That's why small talk is annoying sometimes. But yeah. And then, so the last communicative reason for echolalia is attention. So to bring attention to something. So the example I have here is, say, a child, maybe they're out on a walk with their parents or something, and then they see something interesting and they're like, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman, or however that line goes. Yeah, they say that to like draw the attention of the people around them because they know it as a phrase that draws people's attention, right? That is kind of how that would look. So those are kind of all of the reasons why someone might use echolalia. And again, just want to reiterate, not every time that someone is using echolalia, there is a reason, like a specific reason behind it. Sometimes it happens automatically, and so there's not necessarily a reason behind when it happens like that, but more so when it happens like consciously, that is when there is a reason for echolalia. So, yes. And so, who are the people that use echolalia? Echolalia is probably the most associated with autism. I think like anytime if you just type in echolalia on Google, they're gonna be talking about autism. So it's definitely a lot of autistic people do use echolalia, myself included. So yes, it happens a lot with autism, but it also happens with lots of other types of people. So I have a whole list here, so bear with me. So other than autism, so people who have aphasia, which is a language disorder, can use echolalia. Also happens with people who have autoimmune disorders. People with closed head injuries can use echolalia. People with congenital blindness can use echolalia. People with cortico-basal degeneration, which I think is like a neurological disorder. They use echolalia. People with delirium, which I didn't know, like, is that still like a thing that people like have, like get diagnosed with or something? People with delirium can use echolalia. People with dementia, like frontotemporal dementia, can use echolalia. People with encephalitis can use echolalia. People with primary familial brain calcification, I don't really know what that means, but they use echolalia. People with Tourette syndrome use echolalia, which is like super obvious, but we don't think about it as echolalia. It's just like we think of it more as tics, but like echolalia can still be a tic, like it's still echolalia. It's just like what? It's just like an involuntary form of echolalia, but it's still echolalia. So of course, yes, people with Tourette's do echolalia all the time. People with intellectual disability, so ID, can also do echolalia. People who have language delays can use echolalia. People who have LATA, I think it's LATA. I don't really know how to pronounce it properly, but yes, they can use echolalia. People who have pick disease, people who have progressive supranuclear palsy use echolalia. People who are schizophrenic, people who've had a stroke, people who are in a confusional state, and finally people who have or are in a post-epileptic status can use echolalia. So like I said, it's a lot of people that use echolalia. So it's not just autistic people, lots of different people use echolalia. So yeah, it's actually honestly the most interesting part of this entire video is just the sheer amount of people that do echolalia, because I didn't know like all these different types of people use echolalia. So that's pretty interesting. So before I end this video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with echolalia, I guess. So what I've learned after doing research from this video, I mainly do echolalia as a stem, and it's mainly echologia, so it's me repeating things in my head a lot. I also tend to do echolalia a lot because of like situation associations or like self-talk and rehearsal. Basically, all of the non-communicative reasons for echolalia is why I'm doing echolalia in my head most of the time. I tend to do it more out loud if I'm by myself. Yeah, that was pretty interesting to learn about myself. So I've also learned that I've been doing echolalia my whole life. I have been doing it my whole life. So my earliest memory of echolalia is from when I'm about 3 years old, I would say. And I was just repeating one line from the Rubber Ducky song over and over again and really annoying my sister. And I thought it was the most hilarious thing in the world. But yeah, that was me doing echolalia. I would just keep repeating, Rubber Ducky, you're so fun. Rubber Ducky, you're so fun. Yes, I would do that. I used to repeat it over and over again, and I remember doing that and annoying my sister. And then I realized, I'm like, hey, I was doing echolalia then. That's interesting. And I also remember a story that my sisters have told me that I personally don't remember doing this, but apparently one time when I was probably about 3 years old as well, at church, I was repeating a line from Like Mike, because we had just recently seen it. And there's a part in the movie where he's like, meet me outside, meet me outside. And it's such a minute part of the movie, so I don't know why that is a part of the movie that stuck with me. But I was saying that really loudly at church, and it was quiet. So it's funny now that I'm older, but I'm sure in the moment it wasn't fun for anyone else. But yeah, that was me doing echolalia. So yeah. And then the last thing I remembered while doing this video is that I still have this list, but I haven't added anything to it in years. But I have this list that I made in high school. It's of just like phrases, sentences, words, or not really words, more like phrases and sentences that people have said or that I have said that I thought was hilarious. And I just made this list and I would like go over it, like just like read them to myself and just laugh. And I realized that that was literally an echolalia list. Like I literally made a list for myself of just echolalia things, and I would just read it and repeat it to myself and laugh. So yeah, my favorite thing from that list is Eduardo, because my history teacher in grade 11, she would say, like, there was a guy in our class named Eduardo, and she would just say it in the most American way ever, and I thought it was hilarious. So yeah, I would just be like, Eduardo, and laugh just like that because it's funny. But yeah, the point is, I've learned that echolalia is something that I do quite a lot, and I've been doing it for my whole life without realizing that I was doing echolalia. So, yes. So that is everything that I have to say on echolalia. I hope that you found this video interesting and that you learned something new, because I sure found I sure found learning about echolalia very interesting, and I've learned a lot more about myself in the process. So I hope that this video has the same effect for you. That's it for this video. If you liked it and you learned something new, then please hit the like button so that more people can see it. If you have any questions or comments or things that you want to say about echolalia, then please comment them down below, because I love to see your comments. It's nice to see what you guys have to say. Finally, if you enjoy watching my videos, then please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when I post my next video. As always, stay ritualistic, or whatever your name is istic, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, goodbye.